The spotlight hit Johnny Cash like a physical force as he walked onto the stage at the Folsom Field Stadium in Boulder, Colorado. It was August 15th, 1979, and 14,000 people erupted into thunderous applause. The man in black, dressed in his signature dark suit, adjusted his guitar strap and stepped up to the microphone. But before he could sing a single note, something caught his eye in the front row. A young man sat perfectly still while chaos exploded around him. Everyone else was on their feet, screaming, waving their arms, but this man just sat there, head tilted slightly upward, hands folded in his lap. He wore a Marine Corps dress uniform, medals gleaming under the stage lights, and he wore dark sunglasses, even though the sun had set an hour ago. Johnny felt something tug at his chest. He had performed for thousands of service members over the years. He had sung at military bases, hospitals, and veteran halls, but something about this Marine was different. "Good evening, folks," Johnny said, his deep voice rolling across the crowd like distant thunder. "We are honored to be here with you tonight." The crowd roared again, but Johnny's eyes kept drifting back to that Marine in the front row. The young man's face was turned toward the stage with an intensity that seemed to burn through the darkness. What Johnny Cash did not know, could not have known, was the journey that Marine had taken to sit in that seat, the impossible distance he had traveled, the pain he had endured, and the promise he had made to himself that nothing, absolutely nothing, would stop him from being there that night. His name was James Patrick Sullivan. Everyone called him Sully. He was 24 years old, though the lines around his eyes made him look older. 3 years earlier, Sully had been a lance corporal stationed near Da Nang. He had been riding in a supply convoy when the lead vehicle hit a mine. The explosion turned the afternoon sky orange. Shrapnel tore through the air like angry hornets. Sully woke up in a field hospital 3 days later. The first thing he tried to do was open his eyes, but the darkness would not lift. A nurse's gentle hand touched his shoulder. "Mr. Sullivan," she said softly, "I need you to stay calm. You have been through significant trauma." "Why can't I see?" Sully's voice was raw, barely a whisper. The silence that followed told him everything he needed to know. The doctors explained it later. Traumatic optic neuropathy, they called it. The blast wave had damaged both optic nerves beyond repair. There would be no surgery, no treatment, no gradual return of vision. The darkness was permanent. Sully spent 4 months at the Walter Reed Army Medical Center in Washington, learning how to navigate a world he could no longer see. He learned to use a white cane. He learned Braille. He learned to count steps and memorize layouts. But the hardest thing he had to learn was how to live with the rage that burned in his chest like a second sun. He had been 19 when he enlisted. He had been an athlete, a wrestler, a young man who climbed mountains and jumped out of airplanes for fun. And now he could not find his way to the bathroom without counting doorways. The only thing that kept him sane was music, specifically Johnny Cash. Sully had grown up listening to his father's record collection, Merle Haggard, Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings. But Johnny Cash was different. There was something in that voice, that deep rumble that seemed to come from the center of the earth, that spoke directly to Sully's soul. When Johnny sang about darkness and redemption, about falling down and getting back up, Sully felt like someone finally understood. In the hospital, Sully played Johnny's albums until the nurses begged him to take a break. He played Folsom Prison Blues, and I Walk the Line, and Sunday Morning Coming Down. He played them so many times, he could hear every guitar string, every breath between verses, every subtle shift in Johnny's voice. One day his physical therapist, a woman named Margaret Chen, knocked on his door. "Sully," she said, "I have something that might interest you." She placed a piece of paper in his hands. Well, she tried. Sully fumbled with it, nearly dropped it. "Sorry," Margaret said. "I forgot. Let me read it to you. Johnny Cash is going on tour this summer. He is going to be all over the country, including a stop in Boulder, Colorado, on August 15th. Sully's heart kicked against his ribs. "How far is Boulder from here?" "About 1,600 miles, Margaret said, "give or take." 1,600 miles, for a man who could not see, who had been injured and discharged from the Marines less than a year ago, who was still learning how to pour a glass of water without spilling it. "I'm going to be there," Sully said. Margaret laughed, thinking he was joking, but when she looked at his face, she stopped laughing. His jaw was set, his hands clenched into fists. "Sully," she said gently, "that is not realistic. How would you even get there?" "I will walk if I have to." And he did. Well, not the entire way, but close enough. Sully saved every penny from his disability checks. He called veteran organizations, churches, anyone who might help. He bought a bus ticket that would take him as far as Kansas City. From there, he would figure it out. His parents begged him not to go. His mother cried. His father, a Vietnam veteran himself, pulled Sully aside. "Son," he said, "I understand what you are trying to do, but this is dangerous. You could get hurt. You could get lost." "Dad," Sully said, "I have been lost since the day I woke up in that hospital. This is the first time in a year that I know exactly where I am supposed to be." His father did not argue after that. Sully left Washington on July 28th. He had 3 weeks to travel 1,600 miles. The bus took him to Kansas City without incident. But from there, things got complicated. He found a trucker heading west who agreed to take him as far as Denver. They drove through the night, the trucker telling stories, while Sully listened to the sound of 18 wheels eating up highway miles. The trucker bought him breakfast in Denver and gave him $50 from his own wallet. "My brother came back from Korea without his legs," the trucker said. "You guys deserve better than what you got. Good luck, Marine." And from Denver to Boulder was only 30 miles, but those 30 miles might as well have been 30,000. Sully tried hitching rides, but drivers would see his white cane and dark glasses and keep driving. He tried walking along the highway, but the cars whooshed past so close he could feel the wind, and twice he nearly stumbled into traffic. By August 14th, the day before the concert, Sully had made it to a truck stop 12 miles outside Boulder. He was exhausted. His feet were covered in blisters. He had not slept in a real bed in 2 weeks, and he still had no ticket to the show. He was sitting outside the truck stop, leaning against the building, when a voice spoke. "You okay, son?" Sully turned his head toward the voice. "Just tired, sir." "You are a long way from anywhere, dressed like that." Sully was wearing his Marine Corps dress blues. He had carried them in his backpack the entire journey, keeping them clean and pressed. He had put them on that morning because he wanted to arrive with some dignity. "I am going to see Johnny Cash tomorrow night," Sully said, "in Boulder." The man was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You know the show is sold out, right?" "I figured it might be." "So what is your plan?" Sully smiled, though there was no humor in it. "I am going to stand outside and listen. The music does not need eyes." The man, whose name was Robert Tillman, turned out to be a concert promoter. Not for this show, but for venues all over Colorado. He made some calls, he pulled some strings, and 2 hours later, Sully had a ticket in his hand, front row, center stage. "This is for you," Robert said, pressing the ticket into Sully's palm. "My son is in the Navy, deployed somewhere in the Pacific. When he comes home, I hope someone would do this for him." Sully's throat closed up. He could not speak. He just nodded. Robert drove him to Boulder that night. He paid for a hotel room. He came back the next morning with breakfast and drove Sully to the stadium. "You are going to have a story to tell," Robert said as they pulled up to Folsom Field. But the story was just beginning. When Sully took his seat, he could hear the crowd filling in around him. Conversations, laughter, the rustle of thousands of people finding their places. He could smell popcorn and beer and cigarettes. He could feel the concrete beneath his feet, solid and real. And then Johnny Cash walked onto that stage. The crowd erupted. Sully could feel the sound like a physical pressure in his chest. But he stayed seated, perfectly still, every sense tuned to the stage. He heard Johnny's footsteps. He heard the creak of leather as Johnny shifted his guitar. He heard the man breathe. Johnny started his set with Folsom Prison Blues, and the crowd sang along so loud Sully could barely hear Johnny's actual voice. But he did not care. He was there. He had made it. 1,600 miles, 3 weeks, and more obstacles than he could count, and he was there. Johnny played for 90 minutes. He played all the hits, all the songs Sully had memorized in that hospital room. Between songs, he told stories, made jokes, thanked the crowd for coming. And several times, Sully noticed, Johnny's eyes would drift down to where he sat in the front row. Then, near the end of the show, Johnny did something unexpected. He stopped playing. He set his guitar down on a stand and walked to the edge of the stage. He pointed. "You, son," Johnny said, "the Marine in the front row. What is your name?" The stadium fell silent. 14,000 people held their breath. Sully's heart stopped. Someone near him nudged his shoulder. "He is talking to you, man." Sully stood up slowly. His voice, when he spoke, carried in the sudden quiet. "James Sullivan, sir. Lance Corporal Sullivan, United States Marine Corps." "How long have you been home, Lance Corporal?" 10 months, sir. "And how far did you travel to be here tonight?" Sully hesitated. Then he said, "About 1,600 miles, sir, more or less." The crowd gasped. Johnny stepped closer to the edge of the stage. "Did you drive?" "No, sir, I walked part of it, got some rides, made it work." "Why did you come all this way, son?" Sully's hands tightened on his white cane. "Because your music kept me alive, sir. When I lost my sight, I thought I lost everything. But your songs reminded me that darkness does not mean defeated. You sing about falling and getting back up, about finding light in dark places. So, I guess I came to say thank you." The silence that followed was absolute. Sully could hear someone crying. He heard Johnny clear his throat. "Come up here, Marine," Johnny said, his voice thick with emotion. People around Sully tried to help him navigate toward the stage. But before he could take more than a few steps, Johnny jumped down from the stage. Not walked down the steps, jumped, 6 feet to the ground, his boots hitting the concrete with a thud that echoed through the sound system. Johnny Cash walked straight to James Sullivan. And then, in front of 14,000 people, Johnny wrapped his arms around this young Marine and held him. The hug lasted 15 seconds, maybe 20. Time seemed to stop. The entire stadium was silent, except for the sound of thousands of people crying. Johnny's voice, when he finally spoke, was captured by the wireless microphone still clipped to his shirt. "Thank you for your service, son, and thank you for reminding me why I do this." When they finally separated, Johnny kept one hand on Sully's shoulder. "Can you get back on stage? I want everyone to see you." Together, with Johnny guiding him, they climbed the stage stairs. Once they were up there, Johnny took the microphone. "This young man traveled 1,600 miles to be here tonight. He lost his sight, serving our country. But he did not lose his spirit, and he did not lose his faith. If that is not the definition of courage, I do not know what is." The stadium erupted. Not polite applause, not casual clapping. An explosion of sound, 14,000 people on their feet, screaming, crying, cheering. The ovation lasted 4 full minutes. Johnny finished his set with "Sunday Morning Coming Down." But before the last chord, he made an announcement. "From this day forward, any service member, active duty or veteran, gets into my shows for free. I do not care what the promoters say. I do not care what it costs. If you wore the uniform, you get in. That is the deal." And he kept that promise. For the rest of his career, Johnny Cash honored that commitment. Thousands of veterans attended his concerts free of charge. He visited VA hospitals. He recorded albums specifically for military audiences, all because of one blind Marine who walked 1,600 miles to hear him sing. Sully and Johnny stayed in touch until Johnny's death in 2003. They exchanged letters. Johnny called on Sully's birthday every year. When Sully got married in 1982, Johnny sent a video message that played at the reception. "Sully proved something to me," Johnny said in an interview years later. "He proved that music is not something you just hear. It is something you feel. It reaches past all our limitations and touches something deeper. That Marine could not see me, but he saw me more clearly than most people with perfect vision." James Sullivan is still alive today. He is 69 years old, living in Oregon with his wife and 3 children. He runs a non-profit that helps disabled veterans access live music events. He has a recording of that night in Boulder, August 15th, 1979. He plays it sometimes for people who ask about the scar tissue on his face, the sunglasses he still wears, the white cane he still carries. People ask me if I wish I could have seen Johnny that night, Sully says, and I tell them I did not need to see him. I felt him, I heard him, and I experienced something more powerful than sight could ever give me. I experienced pure human connection. And the story of Johnny Cash and the Blind Marine spread through the music world like wildfire. It changed how artists thought about their audiences. It changed how venues treated disabled patrons. And it reminded everyone that sometimes the most powerful moments happen not on stage, but in the space between performer and audience, in that electric connection that makes us all human. If this story moved you, hit that like button and share it. Subscribe to hear more incredible true stories about human connection and courage. And tell us in the comments, what moment of human kindness has changed your life? What impossible journey have you taken for something you believed in? Because at the end of the day, we are all like Sully, traveling through some kind of darkness, searching for something that reminds us we are alive. And sometimes, if we are lucky, someone reaches out and holds us. Someone sees us. Someone reminds us that the journey was worth it. That is what Johnny Cash did for James Sullivan on August 15th, 1979. That is what great artists do for all of us. They remind us we are not alone in the dark.